Elara Wei was enjoying her third cup of coffee when the universe decided to get weird. The message from SETI popped up on her screen with a notification sound she'd customized to be just annoying enough that she couldn't ignore it. "We have something. Not sure if it's your area, but nobody here can make sense of it." She sighed, stretching her arms above her head. As the world's foremost expert in computational linguistics with a specialization in extinct language patterns, Elara was used to being the last resort for weird signals. Usually it was just some grad student misinterpreting noise or a previously catalogued transmission that had bounced back from something in the Kuiper belt. "Send it over," she replied, expecting nothing. When the audio file arrived, she dragged it into her analysis software and pressed play. The signal pulsed with a rhythm that was unmistakably linguistic in nature, not random cosmic noise or mechanical feedback. Her software began breaking it down, searching for patterns, cadence, repetition. Elara frowned. This wasn't radio telescope chatter, nor was it any of the standard encrypted formats used by modern satellites. The communication architecture was antiquated. She called SETI back. "Where did you get this?" "That's the thing," said Dr. Martins, his voice unnaturally tight. "It's coming from AO7. AO7. The amateur radio satellite." Elara pulled up the satellite specs on her second monitor. Launched in 1974, operational until 1981 when its batteries failed, then mysteriously reactivated in 2002 when its solar panels could provide direct power. It had been essentially dormant for decades, just another piece of space junk in low Earth orbit. "The same," Martins confirmed. "But it's not broadcasting on any of its known frequencies. This is something new." "New from a 50-year-old dead satellite," Elara muttered. "How delightfully impossible." Her analysis software beeped, indicating it had found something. The signal contained distinct phonological patterns. Rhythmic. Structured. It wasn't random. 3 hours later, Elara had assembled a makeshift team. Dr. Kaya Okafor, an expert in ancient writing systems, peered over her shoulder at the frequency patterns displayed on the monitor. Leon Choi, a hardware specialist who knew obsolete satellite tech better than anyone, was attempting to establish a more direct connection to AO7. "It's definitely a language," Kaya said, tapping the screen. "But not one I recognize. The syllabic structure doesn't match any known modern language. Could it be an elaborate hoax?" Leon asked, not looking up from his equipment. "Someone hacking into the satellite to broadcast gibberish?" Elara shook her head. "The signal is coming directly from AO7's hardware, not passed through it. And these patterns, they're too consistent, too structured to be randomly generated." "Then what is it?" Kaya asked. "I don't know yet," Elara admitted. "But look at this frequency distribution." She pulled up a chart showing peaks and valleys across the spectrum. "This pattern here. It recurs throughout. Almost like a signature." Leon whistled. "That's not in any standard communication protocol I know." "Me neither," Elara said, "but it's familiar somehow." That night, Elara dreamed of her grandmother. Nai Wei had been a professor of classical Chinese literature before the memory purge of 2031, when the government had systematically erased certain historical records and traditional texts deemed destabilizing. Nai had dedicated her final years to preserving what she could, teaching young Elara scripts and stories that were no longer in official circulation. Elara woke with a start. The pattern. It couldn't be. She rushed back to the lab at 3 a.m., startling the night security guard. Loading the signal again, she applied a different analytical framework, one designed for tonal languages with logographic writing systems. The software struggled, not built for this specific application, but when she manually adjusted the parameters. There it was. A pattern emerged that matched no known modern language but shared structural characteristics with an archaic form of Chinese that hadn't been widely spoken in nearly 1,000 years. By morning, when her team arrived, Elara had isolated several repeated segments that she believed represented complete thoughts or sentences. "It's a variant of Middle Chinese," she explained, excitement making her voice quaver. "Not exactly like any historical record we have, but unmistakably related. It's like, it evolved separately." "That's impossible," Kaya said flatly. "That satellite was launched in 1974. Middle Chinese died out centuries earlier." "I know how it sounds," Elara replied. "But listen to this segment." She played a processed version of the signal. The room filled with sounds that seemed to hover between speech and song, tones rising and falling in patterns that felt hauntingly familiar to Elara. "I've isolated what I think is the core message. It repeats every 17 minutes. Leon looked skeptical. "Even if you're right about the language, how would an American satellite from the 70s be broadcasting in ancient Chinese?" "I don't know," Elara admitted. "But there's more. Look at this." She pulled up an image on her tablet, a faded photograph of her grandmother standing next to a much younger man in front of some kind of technical equipment. "This is my Nai in 1973. She was visiting the United States as part of a scholarly exchange program, one of the first after Nixon's China visit." Kaya leaned closer. "And the man?" "His name was Richard Chow. He was a Chinese-American engineer who worked for, guess who?" "MSAT," Leon breathed, naming the organization that had built AO-7. "He worked on the satellite." "My grandmother never talked about him much," Elara said. "Just that they were friends during her time in America. But now I'm wondering if there was more to it." The lab doors slid open as Director Novak entered, her face a carefully composed mask of concern. Behind her stood two men in plain suits who nonetheless screamed, "Government." "Dr. Wei," Novak said stiffly. "These gentlemen are from the Department of Defense. They'd like to discuss your recent discovery." The taller of the two men stepped forward. "I'm Agent Reeves. We understand you've made progress interpreting the AO-7 transmission." Elara felt a chill. "News travels fast. Unauthorized satellite transmissions are a matter of national security," he replied without emotion. "Particularly when they may contain classified information." "Classified? It's in a dead language," Kaya protested. Agent Reeves fixed her with a cold stare. "Languages don't die, Dr. Okafor. They're killed. And sometimes, what they know is buried with them." Elara's tablet pinged with an incoming message. A new audio file, another transmission from AO-7, but different this time. As she hit play, the room filled with a woman's voice, aged, speaking in that same archaic Chinese dialect, but with unmistakable emotion cutting through the static. Even before her translation software confirmed it, Elara recognized the voice. It was her grandmother. "That's not possible," Elara whispered, but the voice continued, crackling through decades of silence. Agent Reeves moved quickly, disconnecting the tablet from the lab's network. "This conversation is now classified," he said, his partner already setting up signal jammers around the perimeter of the room. "My grandmother died 3 years ago," Elara said, her voice hollow. "That recording has to be from before then. When was the last time AO-7 transmitted anything unusual?" Reeves asked Leon, ignoring her. "Never," Leon replied. "It's been running standard amateur radio protocols since its resurrection in 2002. Nothing like this." Director Novak cleared her throat. "I think we all need to take a step back and—" "What I need," Elara interrupted, finding her voice, "is to understand what my grandmother has to do with a forgotten satellite suddenly speaking a 1,000-year-old language." The second agent, who hadn't spoken until now, placed a thin metallic case on the lab table. "My name is Agent Park. What I'm about to share is technically still classified, but given the circumstances." He opened the case, revealing an old-fashioned data storage device. "This contains the complete engineering schematics for AO-7, including certain modifications not in the public record. Leon's eyes widened. Modifications? AO-7 was officially an amateur radio satellite, Park explained. But it also carried experimental communication technology developed in a joint program that included certain international collaborators. During the brief warming of relations with China in the early 70s, Elara felt the pieces clicking together. Richard Chow. And my grandmother. Park nodded. Dar. Wei Lihua was a linguistic theorist specializing in historical Chinese languages. She worked with Chow on an experimental communication protocol based on semantic tonal patterns rather than standard binary code. A way to encode more information in less bandwidth, Leon breathed. Using the structural efficiency of tonal languages. But why Middle Chinese? Kaya asked. Why not modern Mandarin? Plausible deniability, Elara realized. A dead language that only a handful of scholars could understand. Perfect for back-channel communications during the Cold War. Reeves' jaw tightened. The program was discontinued when relations cooled again. The modified transmitter was supposed to be disabled before launch. Obviously, it wasn't, Elara said. But why activate now, after all these years? For answer, Park connected the storage device to a secure terminal. The system was designed with a failsafe. If not actively suppressed, the recorded message would broadcast automatically under certain conditions. What conditions? Elara demanded. Complete battery failure followed by solar-only power restoration, Leon guessed. That happened in 2002 when AO-7 came back online. But that was 23 years ago, Kaya objected. Park nodded grimly. The final condition was a specific astronomical alignment that only occurs every 51 years. That alignment happened 3 days ago. Elara felt a chill. My grandmother knew this would happen. She knew when the message would play. That's why she taught me the language, so I could understand when the time came. With trembling fingers, she connected her specialized translation software to the secure terminal. Her grandmother's voice filled the room again, but this time with the translation appearing as text on the screen. The stars align as promised. If you hear this, little swallow, I kept my word. The truth cannot remain buried forever. Elara's eyes stung. Little Swallow had been her grandmother's nickname for her. The voice continued, more urgent now, what we found in the stellar data was not meant for our time. The patterns repeat. They have been watching since before our ancestors first looked to the heavens. Richard confirmed it before they silenced him. The cyclic extinction events, the evolutionary leaps, none were random. The agents exchanged alarmed glances as the translation continued. The evidence is encoded in the full transmission. Archaeological data from sites they made us forget. Genetic markers they inserted into our ancestral line. Astronomical observations of their periodic returns. Director Novak had gone pale. Is she saying what I think she's saying? They come every 7,000 years, the translation continued. The last visit ended the Neolithic transitional period. The next visitation is scheduled for 2079. They do not consider it invasion, to them, we are the long-term experiment, the garden they periodically prune and reshape. Leon looked up from his equipment. There's more data embedded in the carrier signal, terabytes of it. Star charts, genetic sequences, archaeological findings. All systematically erased from official records during the various rationalization programs that every major government conducted between 2030 and 2040, Elara finished, memories of the memory purge suddenly taking on new meaning. They knew, Reeves muttered. Someone found this evidence and buried it. Not buried, Elara corrected. They just removed it from Earth. She looked at the satellite tracking data. AO-7 is in a stable orbit. It could circle Earth for another century at least. My grandmother and Richard Chow created a time capsule that no terrestrial authority could touch. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. How much time do we have to prepare? Kaya finally asked. 54 years, Park answered. Assuming the translation is accurate. It is, Elara said with certainty. But preparation isn't the point. Don't you see? The message isn't a warning about them coming. She pointed to the final lines of the translation scrolling across the screen. It's a warning about what those in power will do with this knowledge. The translation concluded, they will come regardless. But how we meet them, united in knowledge or divided by fear, determines whether their arrival marks our next evolution or our final extinction. This truth belongs to all humanity, little swallow. Not to governments or corporations or the powerful few. Remember what I taught you, knowledge shared is power multiplied. Elara looked up at the agents, the director, her colleagues. My grandmother wasn't just a linguist. She was a guardian of truth. So was Richard Chow. They knew this day would come, when their message would return from the past to shape our future. Agent Reeves' hand moved toward his weapon. Dr. Wei, this information is now classified at the highest level. No one leaves this room until... The lights suddenly cut out. When emergency power kicked on seconds later, Elara's tablet was missing, and a small device on the table emitted a faint blue light. What did you do? Reeves demanded. Elara smiled for the first time since hearing her grandmother's voice. I didn't do anything. But my grandmother planned for this moment for 50 years. Did you really think she wouldn't have contingencies? The blue light pulsed once and went dark. In labs, universities, and amateur radio stations across the world, receivers were already picking up a new signal, the complete broadcast from AO7, now being relayed through dozens of network systems. Knowledge shared, Elara said softly, is power multiplied. Director Novak surprised everyone by laughing. Well, gentlemen, it seems containment is no longer an option. The question now is whether you're going to arrest the world's leading expert in translating the most important message humanity has ever received. The agents exchanged grim looks, but their decision was interrupted by an alert on Park's secure phone. His eyes widened as he read the message. Too late, he said. It's trending on every platform. #ancient signal. The translation algorithm was part of the broadcast package. Elara closed her eyes, suddenly understanding the full scope of what her grandmother had set in motion. She had never just been teaching her granddaughter a dead language, she had been preparing her to be the bridge between past and future, between buried truth and a world that needed to hear it. So what now? Leon asked the silent room. Elara opened her eyes, feeling the weight of her grandmother's trust, and the path now illuminated before her. Now, she said, we do exactly what they hoped we would. We prepare. Not in secret, not in fear, but together. We have 54 years to decide what kind of humanity they'll find when they return. Agent Reeves holstered his weapon with a defeated sigh. I'll need to contact my superiors. You do that, Elara said, already turning back to her analysis of the signal. Meanwhile, we have work to do. Above them, circling the Earth in its silent orbit, AO7 continued its transmission, a dead language carrying a living truth, a voice from the past reshaping humanity's future with each completed circuit around a world that was never as alone as it had believed.